As many of you know, we've increased our coverage in South Florida since 2008. So I wanted to introduce some of our team members here, so when they call you for stories and quotes, they don't seem so strange to you. First and foremost, Ina Cordell, she's back there. She's formerly with the Miami Herald for many years, and we're very happy to have her. Catherine Kalargis, also with the formerly with the Miami Herald, now she's with us. Sean Stewart Muniz with Gainesville Sun, and now he's with us. And of course, Chris Cuomo, who runs our operations down here in South Florida. Normally we do these shows in Miami, but one of the reasons we decided to do the forum here in Broward was because of the noticeable increase in activity that Broward County is experiencing. We feel, right. You know, more and more, it's looking more and more attractive for domestic and foreign buyers who feel like they've been priced out of Miami. And the demand for it is looking really strong. I just met a developer who has a project here, and he said more than 60% of the signed contracts that he has are from domestic, and 25% of those are local Miami buyers who are buying in Broward, which I thought was very impressive. One of the things we're going to discuss today is where the next wave of foreign capital is coming from. For us, what we're saying at The Real Deal is a no-brainer that it's coming from China. And that money is going to, here you go, and that money is going to increase tremendously in the next couple of years. You know, from 2013 to 2014, their increase in U.S. spending for real estate went up by 42%. And it's expected to go the same amount at least for next year, and from $67 billion in spending to $205 billion in spending in U.S. Real estate, you know, commercial, residential, you know, infusing cash into projects in the next until 2018. So we see that happening, and we're going to discuss that with the folks we have on stage today. The reason why I bring that up is because The Real Deal is doing the first ever U.S.-focused real estate show in China in September 10th to the 12th. So if anybody is up for a 15-hour flight, you're coming with me. I'll buy you some dumplings, tea, the whole thing. So in fact, we have somebody who's in Beijing right now from One World Property Group, who's at a luxury property showcase, who we have a video from, I believe. So we're going to show that video. It's a 2-minute video, and it's about what she's sensing from the Chinese buyers in Beijing. So let's roll that video, and then we'll introduce the panel.
Hello, and ni hao. My name is Peggy Fusey, and as the CEO of One World Properties and a South Florida real estate professional selling Miami to the world, I already need to speak more than one language. I'll be adding a little Chinese to my speech this week as we are presenting Paramount Fort Lauderdale Beach and Paramount Miami World Center here at the Luxury Property Showcase in Beijing. Showcasing Paramount Miami World Center and Paramount Fort Lauderdale Beach to the most discerning buyers. Typically, Chinese buyers have gravitated to the West Coast of the United States and New York. But as South Florida's awareness continues to rise among the Chinese as a world-class destination, they are discovering we have all that they have on the West Coast and much, much more. And our real estate is extremely affordable compared to New York, and of course, we have a very favorable taxation environment. China accounted for 16% of foreign home buyers in the United States during the 12 months ending in March. This is up 13% from 2013. During that year, the Chinese purchased $22 billion of U.S. properties with a median home price of $524,000. While the numbers are still relatively low for us in Florida, the sheer size and growing interest of China's outward real estate market presents a large opportunity for all of us in the industry. Last year, policy was relaxed, which allowed Chinese companies to invest more freely outside the country, and there are talks of regulations that may soon loosen for individuals too. When Chinese look to purchase properties, the investment needs to be sound. They are drawn to Miami because of our top-tier colleges and universities, and they see our city as a vibrant business center with ease of access to and from anywhere in the world. Also, they have the chance to make the United States a true home. China recently struck a mutual 10-year visa agreement with the United States and Canada. The government has designated Florida as a regional center under the EB-5 visa program. Foreigners who invest at least $500,000 in an American project that creates at least 10 jobs will be granted residency. Putting it into perspective, the same type of program in Australia requires 9 times that investment at $4.5 million. Cultural nuances must also be respected, including executing the correct protocol when exchanging business cards, maintaining eye contact during a conversation rather than looking at a translator, and being aware of the different dialects throughout the region when translating marketing materials. I wish you all a very successful panel as we discuss international investment and what it means to South Florida real estate. Enjoy the panel.
All right, thank you. That was good. All right, I'm going to introduce the panelists and we'll get started. First, David Martin, president and owner of the Terra Group. David founded Terra Group in 2001 with his father, Pedro Martin. Terra currently has about $3 billion under development. 2 of Terra's most fantastic developments, Grove at Grand Bay and Park Grove, with Related, are going up now, and I believe they got record prices there. He didn't want me to say that, but I think it's an achievement. You know, it should be noticed. Carlos Melo, principal of the Melo Group. The Melo Group saw the unrealized potential in Edgewater about 10 years ago, and they now control a huge chunk of it with a dozen rental or condo towers there in various phases of development. They were also the pioneers of the 50% deposit structure, which was already familiar to the Latin American buyers, where they introduced that to South Florida, which really helped with new developments here. Next, we have Philip Spiegelman, principal of International Sales Group, also known as ISG. There's no greater testament to Philip's expertise than to say that he sold over $8 billion in new developments with his partner. So we're very happy to have him here as well. And finally, Dora Puig. Dora got her start in Beverly Hills, luxury real estate, before turning her attention to South Florida, where she was previously the #1 selling realtor in South Beach. Currently, she runs her own firm, Luxe Living Realty. All right, I'm going to start with Philip Spiegelman. Philip, last time we had a panel with you, you said that every month, this was in 2012, you said every month you send a fruit basket to Hugo Chavez because he's your #1 sales broker because of all the chaos he causes there and makes people from Venezuela come here. Who are you sending fruit baskets to these days?
So I was saying that Mr. Maduro in Venezuela is making things better for real estate here in South Florida, as is Mr. Santos in Colombia. Christina Kirchner in Argentina is also improving the movement of interest money and purchasing here in South Florida. So different than where we were in 2012, I would tell you that we are seeing the dynamic throughout all of Latin America playing a part, so that it's not just one country or 2 countries, but almost all of Latin America, Central America, and Mexico play now a very important part of the real estate market in South Florida.
David, the other day when we spoke, we talked about how there was a dip in Latin American buyers, and you were concerned that you didn't want that message going out there so, black and white, that there was more to it. You had an explanation for it. I guess the dip is the Downtown Development Authority did this report on real estate, and the dip was from 35% to 29%, and they feel like that's going to increase for 2015, but you had an explanation for it. Can you share that with us?
Well, so statistics are interesting from one year to the next. Sometimes I think they can distort the perception or the sustainability of our economy and our residential real estate economy and our commercial real estate economy. So, what I found and what we found is Colombia and Mexico have been very strong lately. 2013, 2014, we saw very strong Venezuelan and Brazilian buyers coming buying in different products, and I think when we look at South Florida, we all have to understand there's different products, and we're building, single-family communities in Weston or Doral or Pembroke Pines. We're building projects in Coconut Grove and Miami Beach, and so each product is different, and so what we've tried to do is deliver products that people can live in. And with that, you know, what we see is more Latin Americans are now coming to move to South Florida. Typically, you know, what we saw in the kind of the 80s and 90s, and those of us that grew up here, a lot of them would come as tourism. They would stay in hotels, and then they would, you know, in the 90s and the 2000s, they were coming here to buy second homes. And today, what we see is, especially in certain pockets where there's great schools and great education, we're seeing the Latin American buyers coming and moving their families here. So I definitely think that the political distress in South America continues. You know, recently, right now, the president of Brazil is going through several issues right now with potential impeachment and a lot of corruption scandals, et cetera. But you know, all those things are somewhat great for our city and for our economy. But I just think that that the choices of what people want and what they're looking for, rather than just investing as a second home or investment property, I think more and more we're seeing the South American clientele wanting to move here.
Yeah. Okay. So you're actually seeing them move here and not just parking money here, right? And Carlos, for you guys, I know a huge part of your audience is from South America, and if anybody's going to notice the dip, I guess you guys would be the first one to notice it. What are you seeing in your sector?
Well, we start sailing in 2011 with South Americans. I don't want to say 100%, but 90-something%. And now
90% of your buyers were South American.
In 2011.
2011, okay.
When we start with the model of the 50%. But now in area we have 30 different countries that are coming to buy. It means that I don't know if we are so dependent of what is happening in South America, but it's what happened in all the world. All the world is complicated today. What we have here in Miami is, first of all, Miami is in the United States. We have the same money the last 200 years. We have a democracy the last 200 years with alternance, you know, and you have a constitution with 27 amendments and 2 lines, and that's what you are buying.
What do you mean by that? The institution with, I'm sorry, with 27?
The Constitution of the United States has only 27 amendments. That's very important. In the rest of the world, they do a new constitution every day. It means that when you come here, when you are buying a piece of real estate, all this is what it matters. Mm-hmm. And the people feel safe when they arrive to Miami. Right. The people can use what they can use in their countries. Doesn't matter how much money do you have, you can use it.
There's no doubt that America is the greatest place in the world. But when you don't have the purchasing power,
the people who live here forget that.
Right. When you don't have, when your currency is getting pummeled the way it did in Russia, when your currency is getting pummeled in South America, and as much as you want to come here because it's a great place, but you know all of a sudden you don't have the purchasing power that you have. How do you guys how do you maneuver around that, and how do you change your strategies for the stuff that you have still?
I think that the people who is buying is not the people who is making money every month and saving some coin to buy in Miami. The people who is buying in Miami, they have the money. It's a decision they have to take. Probably in one day there are devaluation in Brazil, that it happens all the time, in Argentina, Venezuela, Brazil. This is not the first time. Some of them, they say, okay, I have an opportunity, I'm gonna buy low stuff in Brazil. Some others say, no, I want to get out of here and put my money in someplace safe, and they come here.
Dora,
there are different kind of buyers. Absolutely. It's not all Brazilian. There are 150 million of Brazilians with different decisions.
Right. Dora, you're on the ground and you're seeing the buyers who are coming in. Have you seen the change? Have you noticed the change?
Well, first of all, let me explain. I'm a little bit different than the other gentlemen on the panel.
You certainly are.
I'm a girl. And my business is really in 2 parts. We do a lot of very high-end residential luxury business, whether it's single family or trophy penthouses. We focus in Miami Beach, specifically South Beach, a lot. And I'm also the director of sales and marketing for the 2 new buildings on Fisher Island. We have about $1 billion in sales slated for both buildings, Palazzo del Sol and Palazzo de la Luna. We're currently selling Sol, and we're 50% sold.
That's great.
And
now, if you could answer the question.
I want to take off on what they said, and I want to touch on the condo side. On the condo side, we're seeing a lot of Americans. Good old USA is our biggest demographic, by far. On South Beach side, we see a lot of CEOs, high-income earners between 40 and 60 that aren't ready to retire and are coming for tax purposes. They're buying trophy homes and trophy penthouses, very large properties to reestablish their residency in Florida because of the no state income tax. I'm seeing that a lot. On the island, we have 50% Americans. The 2 bigger demographics are Russian and Brazilian, and then it's spread out between Latin America and Europe.
So you're still seeing the Russian market here, even though their currency's down by 40%?
I was going to go there next because I don't think they do as much business with Russians as I do. I have a lot of Russian traffic on the island and on the beach. They buy the very expensive trophy pieces, and we sold our $35 million penthouse and went hard last month with a Russian out of London. Not Russians doing business in Russia. They're the Russian market that's already out, that lives in London, they live in France, they live in New York. There's still business there because they're still trickling in. On the Brazilian side, our traffic slowed down a lot, and I've been seeing a lot of sales from Chicago.
Are you seeing that they're going for like smaller spaces because their currency has dipped, or they're still spending the same kind of dollars?
You can't take the large home out of the Russian. They buy big. They buy big spaces. On the American purchasers that we're seeing, because on the beach we get a lot of second, third, fourth, fifth homeowners, but I'm also seeing traffic with Brazilian clients planning to relocate here for good, as David was saying, moving their family, putting their kids in school, that sort of thing.
David, you build a lot of stuff in Coconut Grove, and you've done a couple of great projects that, architecturally they're amazing. The Grove at Grand Bay and the park at the Grove, they sound similar. One's by Rem Koolhaas, one's by BRK Ingalls. You're working with Renzo Piano. You got Chad Oppenheim doing something for you here in Broward. Why did you come to Broward County when you have you have so much experience in Miami?
There's a thesis that we look for in we try to identify neighborhoods that have a barrier to entry. Miami Beach has historic preservation. Coconut Grove has tree preservation, and they're very active. Weston is an amazing city, amazing schools, amazing people, amazing income levels, and so we came to Broward. We also went to Southwest Ranches, and we this I-75 corridor is interesting, and a lot of the westward movement has basically stopped in Broward, obviously protecting the Everglades. So all there is infill, and in Weston we found a 120-acre old golf course that we're converting to 125 estate homes, and we wanted to bring a new identity, a kind of a evolution of Weston. Weston was created by Arvida, kind of, in the 80s and 90s, and for us, we wanted to give it kind of a new, modern, more contemporary flavor, but still staying true to what Weston's about, which is obviously great landscaping, great land. So we brought in Chad Oppenheim, we brought in Ronnie Mateo. We actually brought in Venus Williams interior design firm, V-Star, and we just love bringing great minds together to kind of really try to understand a community and understand who our buyers are and what their needs are. And so, we developed a lot of models that and really amazing indoor, outdoor spaces, so that we could deliver a product that really doesn't exist. And so that was not competitive. I mean, I think the average year built in Weston is like in the late 90s. So, these homes are over 16, 17 years old. So, we wanted to bring something fresh, clean and new to Broward, and we've followed that principle where we're trying to be as design driven as possible, and that's not all about just bringing the architect, but it's a lot about studying our market, who our buyers are, what their needs are, how big are their families.
Who are your buyers for Broward?
So Weston's probably one of the best school systems in Broward, if not the best, and so definitely families, and it's kind of mixed. I would say Weston has half of Weston. I would say has a very strong Colombian and Venezuelan population that really has a lot of pride in the city, and the other half is American. And so what we find is a lot of move-ups. People from existing older houses that are now reselling their houses, moving up into a brand new home. And then we're also seeing, and those are both American and Colombian Venezuelan that live in Weston. And then we're also seeing Venezuelans and Colombians that are moving to Weston from Colombia. And, you know, Colombia's had a very strong run with its economy. And so a lot of these families have done extremely well. And they want their kids to come to school here, and they want to raise their family in a safe, secluded environment, and so that's what we wanted to do.
There's something interesting about education, and going back to the Chinese, the number one reason why the Chinese look to invest in the U.S. is for education for their kids. So as soon as they have a child, they immediately look for a property for their child somewhere in the U.S. because obviously the U.S. has the best schools. I was talking to the folks from Related, and they were saying, this guy was teaching a class there. He said 2 years ago or 3 years ago, he had 136 Chinese students, and then the last year when he did it, they had over 2,000 Chinese students who were attending the Miami University, which I thought was pretty interesting. Philip, do you guys do any sort of marketing for Broward properties?
Well, we're just about, we did. We represented the Related Group on a number of standing inventory products as the cycle changed from the recession back to the new construction cycle. Pardon me. We're just about to launch the W on the beach in Fort Lauderdale, which will be a Related New York, Related Miami, with Related ISG as the marketing and sales agent. So that's an exciting new project that's going to be completely rehabilitated and relaunched coming very soon.
How does your marketing change for Broward than from Miami?
Well, our experience has been is that we have just as an easy a time attracting the foreign investor and buyer to Broward as we do to Miami. It's been a question of opportunity, availability, selection, but every time that we've had a property that we've represented in the Broward market, we've been able to take it offshore and represent at a minimum 50% of our sales have come from those markets. As well, we have local people that are empty nesters coming in from the western suburbs. We have people from the Northeast and the Midwest that are attracted to the Broward markets as well. So it's only logical now as Miami-Dade becomes more active that people start to look north, and Broward is the next logical choice. There's lots of opportunity there, and I think we'll be having this discussion a year from now of what and how things are going in that market.
Do you think that the audience that's coming to Broward County and buying condos there, are they buying there mostly for primary, or are these secondary homes that...
Our experience is both. I think, again, you have to look at the selection. Some of the newer product that's being built in the eastern coastal areas in condominium are large enough to be able to accommodate a full-time lifestyle. And that really requires an apartment of 2,000, 2,500 plus square feet in order to attract the kind of buyer that would look to move here and actually live here. On the other hand, the smaller, let's say more rentable type properties have been very, very popular to investors from all over the world.
That's great. Carlos, do you have any plans of doing anything in Broward?
No, I think that, well, in our case, we started in the 2001 in Edgewater when nothing happened.
Can you speak into the mic?
Now we own 2,000 units that we rent, that we build and rent.
In Edgewater?
In Edgewater, and some in other areas, but most of them in Edgewater. And now we are selling area on the bay, 650 units in front of the bay. It's the last piece of land in front of the bay in the 18th Street, in front of the Margaret Peace Park. And I saw that the buyers who are buying here is people who understand what is live in a core of the city. People from South America or from Europe, they understand what is to live in the city, what is to have the mobility without a car.
Do you think Miami has a lot of mobility? Because
No,
the
but
last 2 days I've spent in traffic.
No, but in that case, we are 2 blocks from the Metro Mover, and the Metro Mover is clean, it's electric. You can give all the frequency that you want because there's no traffic in between. But the people don't see it here now because they don't need it. But I think that those places, Miami is changing. In the 2005, you were selling a place that was a promise. And all the units are full. Doesn't matter who bought those units, if it's an investor or it's a local buyer, but the people want to live there. You go at night and all the lights are on. That's the most important. And in the future, the people who now are 25, 30 years old, then they live alone and they understand all the commodities that they have living in those areas, restaurants, theaters, museums, in the same building that they have a pool, a gym, a kids room, everything. When they start a new family, I don't know if they want to move to someplace else and drive 1 hour and a half. They're going to stay there because it's difficult to bring someone who used to live in a home, bring it to an apartment or a condominium. But people who start living in a condominium, they don't want to move out either.
I want to address what I like to call the Staten Island of North America, the Canadians, who are the sort of the quiet buyers that have been coming here for a while. You can't really distinguish them because they speak English for the most part. But are you noticing, Dora, do you have Canadian buyers? Philip, I like for you to follow up.
That's probably a more appropriate question for him because I think there's a huge Canadian base up here in Broward County, and I don't see a ton of them. An occasional sale, but not a lot.
I think the Canadian market, you know, in Broward County, Hollywood, North, has always been a rather modest buyer. They look for modest price product. It's becoming more and more difficult to develop that kind of product for that market along the coast. We think, and we haven't proven it yet, but we believe that the Toronto-based market is the more demographically suited for the higher priced coastal luxury products that are being produced. And Toronto's had an amazing run of a healthy real estate economy for a number of years now. So it hasn't been that kind of emigration that we were hoping for, but we have expectations that in this cycle that we'll be able to attract the luxury buyer from the Toronto market into South Florida.
Do you guys actively market to the Canadian market?
We take a portion of our marketing budget and allocate it, but for us, the ISG method has been, and I'm sure it's not different than my competitors, but my partner Craig and I have always felt that finding good partners in every market is the way to do business. When we just go and visit and then leave, you don't have the follow-up capacity to really convert business. So we've been searching for the right partner, and I think we found the right person in Toronto, and we're going to take a bet.
David, I think you had something to add to that.
Yeah, I'm glad Philip mentioned Toronto. We in the Renzo Piano job in Miami Beach, we have 2 families from Toronto that purchased there, and we also, in the last probably 3 years ago, started investing with a family from Montreal, acquiring a lot of multifamily apartments. And so I definitely see the Canadians, but obviously not.
You're seeing them as buyers in your projects?
I'm seeing them small and buyers in the high end, just selectively. But I definitely see them. They're real estate. A lot of the families have done very well in Canada. A lot of the real estate families have done very well in Canada, and they're looking to South Florida to invest. So I'm also seeing them looking for investments and acquisitions here.
The next thing I want to address is the EB-5 visas, which, if you're not familiar with them, it's an opportunity for people from around the world to be able to get a visa to the U.S. by spending $500,000, is that correct? $500,000 on a property, and then they get a visa to come to the United States. Are you guys seeing the impact of that? Because out of the 10,000 EB-5 visas that they're allowed to give out, 85% of them went to Chinese residents last year, and they're expecting the same number this year, and they're going to be out of those visas by June. And the benefactors of those visas are Florida and New York and California. So are you guys seeing them in your projects?
Not so much. I think there are two issues that we need to solve for the Chinese buyer. Obviously, one of them is direct flights. We obviously, they have direct flights to New York, they have direct flights to San Francisco, and my understanding is the Miami International Airport is going to start direct flights in 2016. The second thing I think is entertainment venues and a lifestyle that's conducive to how they live. And we really don't have a Chinatown, for instance, in South Florida. And so, you know, I have heard talks in different pockets of South Florida that people are looking to theme, and design their developments with a but you're right on the education. I think most of the Chinese families I have met want their kids to come to school here and want their kids to stay here. The air quality in China and their lifestyle and security issues in China are big, and I think that the climate in Miami, I think, is very conducive to similar climates in certain parts of China. So I definitely think Broward and Dade are going to benefit big time, but I think we're at the early stages of it, and I applaud Real Deal and you for taking a lead on this topic, because I think it's going to be important for the next decade, 2 decades. Thanks.
Carlos, are you seeing the EB-5?
I think that we need to explain what is an EB-5. EB-5 is not a real estate business. Okay. You can do this program exists for many years ago.
Can you speak right into
it? Yeah, when you invest in an EB-5, it's totally at your risk. Not because you are buying a unit for $500,000, $1 million, they are going to give you an EB-5. It's a program. You can do a school, you can do a factory or some kind of another business that is approved for an EB-5. It's a bridge for someone who wants to move to the United States. But it's not so easy for condominiums, because you need to have your investment at least 5 years in the EB-5.
How does that work? If I am a foreign citizen and I want to get an EB-5 visa and I write a check for $500,000,
you have to find an investment that was approved for an EB-5, and you invest there. But it's not necessarily real estate.
But as a developer, do you have to sign up for that opportunity?
For the developer, you have to approve your project for that purposes. But the most important with the EB-5 is that there are a new bridge for people who want to move here, to give them the opportunity to live here. And those people who is buying or investing in an EB-5 is people who is wealthy and they have money, and it's good for our economy. But it's not something that's going to help for our projects. I think that helps for the economy.
Philip, go ahead.
If I might. The concept of an EB-5 approved project has to go through a regional center. That region, by the way, the investment can be $1 million or $500,000, depending on whether we're in a high unemployment area or not, and that's a designation that the regional centers are given.
So for areas like Broward, where you could actually get a lot for $1 million, then it would make more sense.
It would, but once a developer decides that he wants to go the route of EB-5, he then has to get his project approved by a regional center, and then that process is a long-term, expensive process, a lot of red tape, and the core of it is the program is set up to create jobs. So if that project can show that it can sustain a certain amount of job creation, then it can become designated EB-5 credited, and then an investor can decide whether to invest in that project and use the EB-5 program to obtain a visa.
But Florida does have the highest number of service providers for EB5s.
As we understand from all of our mutual research on the internet.
Right. Well, I want to ask a few more questions, and then I want to go to the audience and get some questions from the audience. But from the start, Dora, what trends are you seeing? What are the surprising trends that you're seeing in the market?
Surprising trends that I've been seeing is, back to good old USA. It's my sales have increased in American buyers.
Great, that's great.
We're the sort of dominant force again in the world.
Right.
And especially on the ultra high end, I'm seeing that more and more.
Philip?
I'm saying welcome back to the Northeast, the original feeder market. I hate to admit it, but I'm in this business now for almost 45 years, and we used to only depend on New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, the Northeast Triangle. My partner Craig and I in ISG have made a living working in South America, and it's been very, very good to us. But we're very happy to say that the domestic market is coming back. We're seeing it in our very high-end luxury properties throughout, from Brickell to Sunny Isles and beyond. And we're going to put a lot of attention and time into developing our relationships in the Northeast, because we believe that's going to help balance some of what's taking place throughout Latin America and other places in the world. And it only makes sense that our market should have a balance to them. So if New York, the Northeast, the domestic market began to represent, let's say, 50% of our business instead of 20%, all of a sudden it becomes much more interesting for us to invest a lot of time and attention to it, and we will.
I guess Related said that 23% of their buys in the last year came from the tri-state area, which was significant. Carlos, what are the surprising trends you're seeing with your projects?
No, what I said is always a good time to invest here in United States. It's about time, but if you buy in United States, it's not a mistake. Probably you can make a better deal or...
By United States, you mean Florida? South Florida?
Florida, the good thing that is growing up very fast, and it increased the value all the time. It's in the places where it's more stable. You buy in Paris, it's Paris, you know what it is. Or Milano is what it is. But Miami, you are buying now at a price, a fraction of the price from the big cities. And I think it's becoming a big, big city. It's about time. Maybe 10, 20 more years, but it's going to be one of the first cities of the world. Means that what you buy today, probably some years is going to be stable, go a little down and going up, but all the time is going to be up, a long time.
I see a few trends. Size of residence, size of home, size matters, right? So what happens is in our rental communities and in certain neighborhoods, what we see really a trend to go smaller, right? Where a rental community maybe had an average unit size of 1,300 square feet with a 1,200 square foot two-bedroom. Now you're looking at potentially 1,100 square foot two-bedroom. So you're seeing a 10, 20% drop in certain product and size. And then in the high end, you're seeing an increase in size where, in Miami Beach, we just we're completing a job in south of Fifth called Glass, and so there, our average unit size is around 4,000 to 5,000 square feet. Our our other job on the beach, our size, in Coconut Grove is in Grand Bay is 5,000 square feet. So we're seeing a trend on the high end going large, and on the middle class really going smaller. And the other trend I think is really the respect that South Florida has from a cultural standpoint. I think we finally have this kind of cultural confidence, and I think the Americans sometimes maybe thought of us more of a drink tank rather than a think tank. And I think today you're really seeing us really respected in medicine, in education, in art, and in culture. And I think that's so important. Even the Brazilians used to, Even the Brazilians, I remember speaking to a lot of my Brazilian friends. They would tell me, "Oh, we go to New York or we go to Europe. We don't go to Miami." Today, they're coming to Miami. So I think there's this respect that's really a psychological thing that we're seeing and trend that when I'm in Paris in a design workshop, and we have a group of soccer players that actually bought in one of our projects, so we take them to the architect's office so they can meet the architect, and you see this in their eyes, the Parisians, how they talk about Miami with a smile, or South Florida with this smile and this excitement, but it's an intellectual kind of discussion. It's not just a party discussion, and I think that trend is here to stay, and I think long term we're really going to be in great shape here.
Nice. We have a lot of brokers in the audience, and a lot of them are curious to know how, Dora, for example, how do you reach out to your foreign buyers? Same for you, Philip. How do you reach out to, do you have any tips for the audience on how they can do that? Because there's only so much you can do, right?
Well, we on the very high end, we reach out a lot through referrals from current homeowners. We work that angle a lot.
But in terms of marketing, what can you do as a broker to make yourself available for the foreign buyer?
We have brokers also in host countries that we have strong relationships with, and that feed us clients, and we do co-marketing with them. We have a very strong e-campaign that has a large international list, and we're constant with it. We don't overkill it. We try to find a nice rhythm with it so we don't cry wolf too many times, so to speak. We just sent a team over to Mexico City right now. I have 2 girls down there going on private appointments with current homeowners' friends and certain brokers in Mexico City.
So just through networking and your current Rolodex, basically.
I'm selling the very high end on Miami Beach, so
good for you.
We try to work on our referral base and brokers. A lot of these people will come to town even if they saw your advertising on the internet or your website, and they will request the services of a top broker because they need the professional advice.
Philip, we met yesterday, and you had marketing materials that were your exact same marketing materials in Mandarin, for everything that you guys produce, and you have the same ones for Latin America and Spanish and Portuguese.
That's true. ISG in 2009, when we were all scared to death that we didn't know where the market was going, how deep the recession would be, created something we call the Miami Report. And it was really an informational-based report to help us understand, our salespeople and ultimately the brokers that we cooperate with, understand what was going on in Miami to create confidence that it really wasn't doom and gloom as the media was reporting at the time. The Miami Report now, in its 15th edition, has evolved to be not just a story about the inventory, but about the evolving global city that Miami is becoming. I won't say it has become, but it's becoming. And it's happening in front of our eyes. People recognize it. So we now publish that report in Spanish, Portuguese, Mandarin. We have a team that is just on its way back from China right now, having attended another conference. We have a full-time Mandarin-speaking agent on staff. And that kind of represents our whole attitude. We're all over the world. At any one time, you'll have a team of ISG people in one city or another, or many cities at the same time. And our job is to find the brokers or the financial people that are connected to high net worth individuals that will help lead those people ultimately to the properties we represent, or at the worst, to a property of any kind, because we still have a general real estate arm that can sell any property. Sure. So that's our job, and that's how, the brokerage world, just what Dora said. You need a great e-campaign. If you're an individual broker trying to prospect for business offshore, you need a great e-campaign. You need to be visible. And then you've got to do tremendous amounts of follow-up. And follow-up is the whole key to this business. If you're going to be successful, it's not one, it's not two, it's just constant. You have to be at it all the time.
Carlos, you guys pioneered the 50% down payment thing after the recession. That really helped a lot of new developments being able to get going, and the banks were willing to lend. But now we're seeing that loosen up a little bit. People are doing it in different phases. It's not the flat 50%. PMG changed it up a little bit, and I think some other folks also changed up how they get that to that 50% or to that 100%. The guys from ISG yesterday told me that pretty much all of their buyers in the last year were cash buyers, so that's not even an issue for them. But do you feel that this loosening up how will the market react to that?
Well, with the foreign buyers, most of them are cash.
Jeez, that's
not for,
so
but
everybody's
for
a cash buyer in
yeah,
South
but
Florida?
for local people is the different thing. I don't know if local people can afford 50%. That's the reason, and I don't know if the local people can afford a condominium for $700,000 either. That's the reason that our company is doing rentals all the time too. Now we are under construction with 500 units in front of the Adrian Art Center. It means when we sell units, okay, you don't believe in here, you are selling to the world. No, I believe so much here that I keep more than I can say. But sometimes I have to say. But
David, you wanted to add to that?
I think the 50% standard was really interesting. It, in my opinion, obviously reduced the risk to the developer because he, in a way, felt that the buyer was much more committed and much more liquid, so the person he was doing business with was much more serious. And I think it also made the buyers feel comfortable that they were buying in a property that that had a group of other buyers and owners and neighbors, future neighbors, that were strong and liquid, and that made a stable, that was going to provide a stable asset long term. I have heard of, a few times some people saying about reductions of these deposit structures. I'm all for keeping them as high as possible. I think it...
Your buyers are cash like these guys? Or
I think in our segments, in the high-end segment, most people have lines of, they have portfolios with different banks, Goldman Sachs, Merrill Lynch, et cetera, and they'll just take a line out from their securities anyways in order to make rather than using cash. So it's a way of, the question is, how do we define cash? How do we define financing? I think the foreign nationals today, a lot of the banks are looking at foreign nationals and looking at their mortgage capacity and saying, foreign nationals, you really can't sell these loans to Fannie Mae or Freddie, so the bank's got to portfolio those loans. But what's interesting is the banks are using, we have our own mortgage bank, George Rowich, who's somewhere here, runs a mortgage bank, and he's really an expert at it. And what he tells me is the banks today are looking at their mortgage capacity as a way of being able to build their client base, build their deposit base, and cross-sell other products to them. So for us, I think foreign nationals may be closing cash, but eventually they may take out, 30, 40, 50% loan. What's great, though, is these liar loans are gone, right? What's great, though, is that, the due diligence people are doing not only on who these borrowers are, the due diligence is much higher, and this gives us a lot more of a stable situation. And I think the buyers today are doing a lot more, due diligence on who they're doing business with as well. And what, if I'm going to give 50% of my money to somebody, I better know who they are, where they live, where their kids go to school, et cetera, But I think it's a really healthy solution to where we were, and it really helped cleanse those that were not doing things correctly and those that are doing things correctly.
To be honest with you, when it was first introduced and people were talking about it, I was like, who's going to have 50% to put down? But I guess that's not an issue if everybody's buying in cash.
It's very surprising. It's very surprising the amount of global wealth that exists, and it's we always talk a lot about demographics and where people are from, right? But at the end of the day, we got to look at psychographics, and you got to think about what Miami means to the world today, and what South Florida and Broward and even Fort Lauderdale means to the world today, and it's really changed, and I think that people today are looking at leverage differently after the crisis. They look at it rather as a tool. They don't look at it as a need. And I think if people need that, and I think that their options are limited, and I think that they obviously are going to probably rent, which, based on their cash flow situation may be better, or maybe it's a young professional that needs mobility and is not staying and is not permanently sure they're going to live in one location for the rest of their life. So they need that mobility, and they shouldn't be buying. So I really think this move has cleansed the market. But anyways, Philip is.
Thank you. I just wanted to add that the discussion about the reduction of some of the deposits is typically a reflection of a business decision that a developer makes when he's already covered all of his costs, he's at the latter stage of sales, and that developer, or she is in a position where they can minimize or reduce the risk by taking a 30% deposit, let's say, versus a 50% deposit. And that's been our experience. That's the psychology that's being introduced when you see the deposits changing in some of the new projects that are being offered. However, I think the thing that worries all of us in the industry is when you see a promoter, and I'll distinguish a promoter from a developer. A developer is truly somebody that understands every moving part of the building and construction and development and sales business. But when you see a promoter that wants to get into this market, which is very attractive, it's very sexy, realizing that in order to compete, they might have to do some of those things in order to grab market share. Those are concerns to us, and those are things that we watch very closely. And David's quite correct. Anybody giving you 30%, 50%, 60% of the cost of the unit should really know who they're dealing with before they hand over that kind of money, because they have limited protection beyond the statutory 10% deposit that's held in escrow.
Dora, you wanted to add something to that?
We're one of the projects that took less deposits, so I wanted to add to that. Our price points are obviously high, so they're in for a lot of deposits. We're taking 40% deposits for our project, and I have to say the foreign purchaser is very comfortable with it. The American purchaser is not an affordability issue whatsoever. They just can't wrap their head around having the developer build the building with their money. It's an American psyche thing. You get around it, you split the deposits up for them. We take 20%, and I have split it up, even the 40% level. The other thing I think that the larger deposits has done to the market is it has created for a stronger base in the market, because in the past, and I worked with David a little bit on this, in 2005 and 6, right after when our market crashed in 7 and 8, you had a lot of people from South America that were sold 10 units in a project because they were putting 20% down bets, or 5 units. That buyer is now buying 1 home, and he is going to close. So I don't think you're going to see the debacle we had in 2008, which was really a banking crash, not a demand crash.
Well, we're in South Florida, so I would be remiss not to mention Cuba. I know we're talking about money coming over here, but as developers and as marketers, are you guys looking to go to Cuba now that hopefully things will open up?
I say I'm Cuban, a Cuban American. I've never set foot in Cuba. Both my grandparents and both parents immigrated here in 1961, and my family and my father and I had the good fortune of being able to own and donate the Freedom Tower to Miami-Dade College. That was kind of our Ellis Island. And we created a center of immigration. And through that, I met a lot of people, a lot of stories. I am kind of more in the camp that got to really open it up. And I just think we got to be careful, because there's no jurisprudence. There's no ability to enforce contracts. And so I've heard and know of a lot of Europeans that have had very bad experiences in Cuba. But I do believe that that the current situation and the embargo did prove that it did not eliminate the Castro or communist or totalitarian regime, and I'm very against the human rights violations and the prison labor conditions and the corrupt judges and the situations where they could just call somebody a spy like Alan Gross and keep him and ruin his life, and these are things that I struggle with, and I think we are going to struggle with, but but there's a magic there. I was having dinner with someone last night at Prime 112, and he had just come back from Cuba, and he was telling me, David, it's the most beautiful, Havana's the most beautiful city, just this historic architecture. It's a European city in the middle of the Caribbean. It's something amazing, and I think it's my dream, and I'm sure it'll be my son's dream and daughter's dream to really set foot there. I think we just got to be cautious and careful about the steps that are being made right now. I think most people are going there really just to do research and kind of get a lay of the land. I don't think anyone's really making some serious investments yet, but I do think that we need to be careful, but I do think that it's about time that it does open up, and it's going to be interesting how that impacts South Florida and impacts other Caribbean countries like the Dominican Republic or Puerto Rico or even the Yucatan. But you know, as a tourist, another tourist competition, if you will. But I think there's a magic to Cuba, and it's something that I'm really hopeful that someday I could take some sort of leadership role in.
About Cuba is not only the real estate of what one small company can go there and buy, I don't know how many acres to do a new hotel. It's about infrastructure. You have to review everything. Yeah. And I think that now is the time for...
As a developer, that creates even more opportunity, right?
Yeah, for the big companies to go for electricity, power, communications, civil work. You have to review everything, and this is, I think, another level, government level.
That's a great point.
I think that is more at the government level for regular people to deal with those kind of governments is not an option. I think that is not an option for us. Okay. If the government don't change.
We're running out of time, so I wanted to get some questions from the audience. I'm going to go to Sean Stewart. Muiz, go ahead.
First, I'd like to start off by thanking our panelists for sharing their wisdom on foreign investment. And now, one thing I've been really curious about is when you're showing, Dora, you might be able to answer this, when you're showing a foreign buyer a home, what amenities do they look for? You know, what do they got to have? Is it the concierge service? Is it lifestyle branding?
I'm experiencing a high demand for services. They want to know what's going to go on while they're here in their winter vacation or their 2-3 month time period they're here in high season. Views are a big factor, and I think they're looking for architecture and design. I mean, as a takeoff to what we were talking about before, Art Basel and the whole cultural experience of Miami's brought in a whole new element of buyer to Miami. That buyer that would not come to Miami would only go to New York and Paris, who was Venezuelan, for example. I think they're looking for architecture. Therefore, the advent of the host architect discussion which could be another event. I think they're looking for design, finishes, and services.
Thank you all for the great presentation. I was wondering what you thought that the impact of the all-aboard rail system was going to be for the Floridian market, but the international market as well, as it connects Dade, Broward, Palm Beach, and ultimately Orlando.
I think hooray. I mean, to have the kind of development pace that we have here in South Florida today and not address transportation would be a great crime. Clearly, and Amir was in my office yesterday, I'm sure he visited a lot of you, complaining about what it was like just to get from one short trip to another, that it took an hour to get here, an hour to get there, and I think we all experienced that. You know, if you have to be somewhere during the busy time of the day, you're challenged to get anywhere in any reasonable period of time, notwithstanding any surprises you'll find along the way. So all aboard Florida is a great step, needs to happen. I grew up in New York City. I know what it is to have public transportation. We were even debating yesterday whether you could build a subway here in South Florida, and that we wouldn't have the patience if we found the money, we wouldn't have the patience or the technology, I'm not sure which. But clearly, in order to accommodate the growth and the influx of people that we have coming to South Florida, transportation is a huge issue. All aboard Florida is a great first step, and I'm hoping people adapt to it. It's changing cultural trends in a city that depends on its car, but I think it can happen.
My question is there any plans to build more affordable housing? And I don't mean low-income housing, I mean affordable for Floridians. It seems like the focus is all about foreign buyers and wealthy buyers, but where is the building for the average Floridian?
I was with a big market study guy that his name's Anthony Graziano. He works for Integra, that actually probably worked on that downtown report, and I think Carlos is definitely developing workforce housing, and we are in certain pockets and neighborhoods. The problem is that land is very expensive. Construction costs are extremely expensive. So you really need to, and also you want the workforce housing to be quality. I mean, it shouldn't be, so what I see happening is this micro world. I see a lot of new rental communities. And so the question is, should workforce have the ability to buy, or should their only choice be to rent? So I think the rental the rental supply is there, and it's being created today. Now the question is workforce for purchase. I think the low-rise development and single-family development. We did a project in Doral. We bought a 250-acre golf course, and we built around 320 homes. And those homes average were around $450,000. Nice homes. We bought the land in the crisis. We bought it at dirt cheap, and we were able to build at a certain cost per foot, where it allowed us to be able to deliver good quality at a cheap price. Today, the land costs are extremely expensive, and so and also the programs. We're very good friends with the Atlantic Pacific communities, and they're currently developing a lot of affordable workforce projects, and it's just the construction costs right now are really prohibitive. So, I think that in this this post-crisis kind of world, you're seeing a lot of the best sites be taken up. There's no more oceanfront land. There's really, and so what we have to do is try to educate the landowners that have owned these properties for so long to try to bring them down in price, because what we see happening is people are just holding on to land that may be perfect for a workforce housing opportunity because they're not getting the price of a luxury condominium. And so that makes it very challenging, and I think it's something that we all need to consider. But you're right, I think there's plenty of federal government, tax credit deals that are happening right now. And I think there's great high-end, amazing opportunities that are happening there. But in the middle, I think there is a shortage, but we got to find a formula for it that doesn't rely on the government and still can achieve the return worth the risk of developing these products.
This is more for David and Carlos. With the price structure of purchase changing, 50% down, construction loans are not needed as much, if at all. What feedback have you heard from the lenders? They've lost out on a very lucrative niche.
Well, when you do a rental, it's about math. They see from the back, they say how much you are going to make and how much you can pay. And the rest, you have to afford it. If part is going to be from the bank, part is equity. When the difference, when you buy a piece of land and you want to speculate, you can leave it there for a long time and nothing happen, or you can speculate with the same land, building when you build over this land, and you speculate with the land and when you put over this land. This is what the rental means. In the future, it's going to increase your land and make more valuable to what you build over that. And at the same time, you're creating jobs, you are giving a place to live to the people who needs, and you create new neighborhoods. I think that is a good speculation. When you buy the land and you leave it there for a long time, nothing happens.
Lenders love the high deposit, love it. I don't think they'd be lending without it. How about that? So I think that in the condo product, which is obviously where you're talking about, specific to the rentals, I think the banks love multifamily and love rentals and are doing more and more of that. But specific to condos, I think the banks feel that if their loan to cost is less than 50%, 30, 40%, they're much more covered and much more safe. And so I think it's definitely a positive.
So I want to thank our panelists for joining us today, and I want to thank all of you.